this is, I guess, probably part of the hype that comes into the AI space where it's like, oh, AI can do everything and it's going to take over everything. And this is kind of hype. And it's like, I think it's an amazing tool and it's an amazing industry, one I'm passionate about. But I think it's simplistic to think that it's just going to automate everything and take everybody's jobs. Like the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious, yeah, like what are your thoughts about all of that?
Yeah. One, and I agree with you. I think that there is, we've made so many gains, like so many leaps forward with AI. It's just very fascinating to watch. And you see that it really excels in a lot of areas. But there are definitely areas where it fails. And I think there are frontiers that maybe require more intelligence, like a lot more intelligence than just reciting facts or recommending certain products or reading marketing textbooks and referencing them. I have had some experience when I've been creating these AI agents for sales purposes in the process of outreach, when maybe they haven't heard of me, or maybe they are vaguely interested, not strongly interested. That I don't feel like the AI agent is a great persuader, a great convincer. I think that it's not quite there, and that requires a human.
If you're enjoying the show, hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. You'll get the latest on marketing, AI, and how to grow your business. It only takes 2 seconds and really helps the show grow, so please hit subscribe and then continue listening.
Reed, great to have you on the show today. I'm curious, like, what are you excited about at the moment in the AI space? That could be AI marketing or AI automations or just even just in marketing, but like what's exciting you? Like what's something that you're like just deep diving into and just you're going down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, so I have been over the last few months experimenting with some the agentic, so creating agents within the GPTs. And so what's helpful even for personal life. So I'll use this personal example. I do the cooking for my family at home. And there's several steps involved in that. I've got to plan the week's menu, got to kind of account for, are we having somebody over for Sunday dinner? Does one of my teen daughters have an activity, and so I need to cook for 3 rather than for 4? So a lot of logistics. And it used to be I had kind of a task management software for that, and it relied a lot on me knowing individual preferences. There's a few dietary restrictions between the 4 of us, and which grocery store I should go to. Some grocery stores have the specialty items I want. Others have maybe more bulk items, and so I've created this agent that is I've combined all that information about my local grocery stores, recipes, and I just say like, hey, there's going to be 4 of us for 5 nights out of 7, and two of us for the other 2 nights, and it spits out both a full recipe plan and grocery list and which grocery store I need to go to. And it has saved me so much time and really just improved my life. Now, that's one example, but if you extend that to a work situation, there's a lot of tasks that kind of depend on an individual, like their stored knowledge. And I love that these agents, it's kind of it's a way to focus the chat GPT, focus it on a task, but they can pull in all of the institutional knowledge that's in your brain and help you do tasks, help you think through things. Sometimes it's not so much, I wouldn't have thought of this. It's, I wouldn't have thought of it this fast, or I wouldn't have been able to type it out this fast. And so it increases the speed and maybe the breadth of information it can handle for these tasks. And so, I love it. I think there's great applications in creating marketing content, blogs, thoughts for, like if you're creating scripts for videos. There's just a lot of different options. It's really great. So that's what I'm excited about, and ChatGPT 5 recently came out, and it does seem to be a step up, generating some higher quality responses. And I use Gemini casually as well, which is working really well. I know a lot of people really like Claude, and but yeah, just seeing so much potential out there.
That's a really cool application. Like, I mean, I don't have a family, so I'm not like cooking, thankfully,
Right.
or like full people, but that's a really cool, like, I think application that I think probably a lot of people could benefit from listening and going, oh, that's a really, interesting application. Cause I think there's such a focus of AI in the business context, which is obviously very important and very,
Yeah.
necessary. But also like there's this personal piece of like, like being in control of cooking or whatever it is in the household and then building an AI agent around that to just like streamline admin, like that just sounds great. I mean, I'm the sort of person that I will eat the same thing for like almost every meal just because I don't like, having to think about that and make
Interesting.
decisions and
Okay.
cook different foods. So
Okay.
I'm very much about efficiency in the same way, but applied in a different way.
Yeah. Well, I'm the opposite. I like, and I've put that actually into the instructions for the agent that I don't like having the same thing week after week. I have to have
Yeah.
variety, and but you could put in your preferences into an agent like that too. Um, I don't envy you. Sometimes it's hard to be motivated to cook for the smaller group, like when it's just me or just two of us. It's like, oh, I'll just order out.
It's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dishes, I
Yeah.
don't. But you know, to your point, I do think that there are so many applications in our personal life for AI, and I do hope it will make our lives better. Um, I've benefited from, I'll ask for recommendations for certain products I need to buy. Uh, Sometimes I can describe a problem and it can uh, think in a way that like a search engine doesn't. So I like to run, and I was having a hard time finding a way to situate my phone. So I'd have my headphones in, but I couldn't find a good way to hold my phone that wasn't like slapping against my body somewhere. And um, helped me find this vest that was special for it, and it just kind of rests against my torso and just works great. So, but, I think the consumer uses of AI maybe are a little underrated.
I agree. I think, yeah, it's very much like enterprise focused and like, business. And then it's like, I mean, there's just so many real world personal applications, whether it's, taking photos of things and checking, and you like whether it's a workout or what's in my fridge or my pet's sick or like whatever it is, and really kind of, or a running vest, and it seems to have a really interesting way of applying the solutions to these interesting problems that humans have. And so with this sort of AI agent that you built, because I imagine it's something that people could do in business as well, not just obviously for cooking, but is it like a custom GPT or like how did you go about building that sort of setup?
Yeah, in this case, it was a custom GPT, and so anybody that has a paid ChatGPT account can do the same. You'll go to your options and create this custom GPT, and then you'll have fields where you can input a lot of information, and so you just type out everything you can think. I mean, it's like, you know, I want to say it's like 30,000 characters. It's a lot that you can input there, and so you instruct it like, what are your preferences? What are the style? What websites would you like us to consult? Or what are things you'd like to prioritize in response? Would you like this an output to come in the form of an image or in a document or in HTML? And so you put in kind of this unstructured data, which think of it maybe like a Wikipedia page, but then you also get to add attachments, so documents. So if there's, and that can expand the amount of data that it can ingest by, exponentially. Essentially, then you can add long documents. Typically, the way those are referenced is you ask it to say and reference our best practices for um, like cooking for a crowd, and then I've got a separate document for that. Um, but when you do that, it kind of like branches out and expands the amount of information it relies on. And, it's like training. I think much like training an employee, you give them a set number of instructions. You do expect it to be able to think through unique one-off cases, but you've given it many references to go back to and be constant on. Um, and so it's, I mean, the agent name is I think very apt in the sense that you are training it to act certainly.
No, it's cool, and I really like the cooking analogy because, as I mentioned before we started the podcast, I'm in Lima this week and not at home, and so obviously, like I said, I eat the same thing usually each day, and so but when I'm on holidays, I like to kind of, mix it up a little bit. So I have some tomatoes and some avocado, which I don't normally eat very often. And just the process of like cooking and chopping veggies, which because I eat like a very kind of keto sort of meat-based diet. So like I'm not really eating many vegetables usually or rice or carbs or anything. So it's been so fun to just like do something new and like play around with it. So and especially like in that AI context of like like creating something that makes our life better and even might help us look at things differently, like, oh, here's all our dietary requirements, here's the foods we like, this is kind of the output. But then where I find, like we were talking about before, like it'd be good if AI can help us become better humans. It's kind of like, I think that's a prime example of like, oh, well, have you thought about these meals or have you thought about introducing these ingredients or whatever? And I know like cooking is just a metaphor for, I guess, like business as well and our personal life. But yeah, I think that, it's a cool place to be in, a cool space to think about like, oh, like, no, I hadn't thought of it that way, or oh, there's another application, or, like tracking different things. I've been using it a lot for like sort of like vibe coding almost or troubleshooting when I like need some help of like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Instead of sitting there and Googling, like, let's just go into ChatGPT and like troubleshoot it. As well as obviously building custom GPTs. But that we are sort of talking about before about agents, this might be a good segue
Yeah.
of kind of like, yeah, just talking about, I mean, you sort of mentioned before we were recording about there's a study about AI agents, and
Yeah.
I've just got the article here sparking a bit of anticipation, skepticism, and fear. This is a article from CFO Dive. I'll put it in the show notes for anyone interested. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, just talking about like people are open to working with AI agents, but only 30% comfortable being managed by them. And, just sort of like there's a mix of workplace attitudes with technology. And then this was like a really interesting insight. The research comes as Gartner predicts more than 40% of agentic AI projects will be cancelled by the end of 2027 due to escalating costs, unclear business value, or inadequate risk controls. And so I think that's just really interesting because this is, I guess, probably part of the hype that comes into the AI space where it's like, oh, AI can do everything and it's going to take over everything. And this is kind of hype. And it's like, I think it's an amazing tool and it's an amazing industry, one I'm passionate about. But I think it's simplistic to think that it's just going to automate everything and take everybody's jobs. Like the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious, yeah, like what are your thoughts about all of that?
Yeah. One, uh, and I agree with you. I think that there is, we've made so many gains, like so many leaps forward with AI. It's just very fascinating to watch. And you see that it really excels in a lot of areas. But there are definitely areas where it fails. And when I was generating a lot of content in a previous role for marketing, I was doing my best to leverage AI, but then also I'd refine it and then try to improve it or make it sound more human. And that's got those metrics I've described. AI has gotten a lot better. I noticed one thing, and I still notice it today, that it cannot, if you ask it to write like a funny joke or be humorous, it just does not, for some reason, can't do it. And just as an example, and I think there are frontiers that maybe require more intelligence, like a lot more intelligence than just reciting facts or recommending certain products or reading marketing textbooks and referencing them. It's there are certain things, and maybe it's in the human to human connection, that it would fall down. Like I don't think anybody. I mean, I'm not surprised to see that statistic that nobody wants to be managed by an AI agent. I don't think we'd expect the right amount of understanding and empathy to come from a bot. But to see that statistic, it just makes sense. Um, and I have had some experience when I've been creating these AI agents for sales purposes. It Now, assuming that somebody was really interested in my product and really just wanted to go through the steps of making a purchase, setting up a consult with me and then making a purchase, um, I think an AI agent is great. But if they in the process of outreach, when maybe they haven't heard of me, or maybe they are vaguely interested, not strongly interested, that I don't feel like the AI agent is a great persuader, a great convincer. I think that it's not quite there, and that requires a human. That requires somebody that can, read body language, or read some nuance in the um, verbal response to say like, oh well, let me try a different persuasive tactic. But um, yeah, and to date, I don't think I've been super happy with when I've been sold to by any of the voice or text agents. And I still seem to be able to tell when that's the case.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting point, and especially like the idea of being managed by AI instead of doing the managing yourself as a human. And so I think that kind of instills a little bit of hope of like, okay, well, as long as you're not like an entry level role, you're kind of safe, at least for now. Obviously, the future is unpredictable, but and I think in some ways that's a really positive thing, because it's like, well, if you are in an entry level role, like then it's time to upskill. It's time to like get to the next level. And so that could be a nice, healthy little push to, re-educate ourselves or whatnot. So I think that's really cool. And that like there's a lot of those entry level tasks will be automated as well. So it's going to be an interesting time. I am curious to see, obviously, like with Gen Z and I
Yeah.
think it's Gen Alpha below them, where is they're like coming into it with like growing up in the age of AI, and like obviously social media and internet, where that's just the norm. Like I grew up in the age of internet, and so that's just like normal for me to like purchase online. Whereas I remember like this was probably going back 5 or 10 years, maybe 10. My mom was like, "Is it safe to put your credit card details in online?" Like really just like hesitant, obviously generationally, and so whereas I was like, yeah, it's fine as long as it's got your HTTPS, padlock, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like potentially like that may shift the response may shift with younger generations. I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all, I guess, a guessing game, but will they be more likely or happier to be managed by AI because they're used to it? I'm not sure. And
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see. Yeah.
Well, I can definitely attest to the fact that they consume information much differently. There are, like there's media entertainment, for instance, that like actually makes me motion sick. Like, some of the Spider-Verse movies, or this K-pop Demon Hunters, or that my daughter's but when I watched this last Spider-Man movie, I was really getting motion sick. There's just too much. And that, yeah, like maybe their brains are attuned a bit more to uh, that style of communication. One thinks. Can I ask you about one thing? You
Mhm.
mentioned your vibe coding.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I ask you? I've been doing a little bit, and I'd love to compare notes. What
Mhm.
platforms do you use, and do you have any uh, interesting stories about that?
Sure. I mean, look, to be honest, I don't know if I'm using vibe coding as the accurate phrase.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's fine. I know.
disclaimer,
I'm curious.
but I'll explain what I'm doing and then you can tell me if it's vibe coding or has a different name.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
not like super techy, hence the vibe coding. Um, but no, I have like, so I have my websites on WordPress and I was doing some updates to it. Oh, sorry, and I had a client's website too who is also on WordPress. So like I was just updating their blog because it was all formatted terribly. Um, and I wasn't able to do what I wanted. And so I was going into ChatGPT to be like, just troubleshoot it. And then it was giving me like CSS to copy and paste into the customizer. And so then like we were doing that. And then as I was doing that, I'm like, oh, that's what this means. And that's what this means. And top padding and bottom padding and like all the different coding in the CSS format that, you do an important and all the, semicolons and things. And it was just, I felt like I was a coder. I obviously, for the most part, was copy pasting the CSS, but then kind of changing like the font size or the padding based on like what I wanted. But it was really cool because I gave it the like brand colors and it just included this like nice formatting and branding, and I was able to redo the author box and just put a disclaimer because accounting firms, can't give out like financial advice or whatever. So I wanted to like put all that at the bottom of the blog and make it look really nice. And yeah, I was just copying, pasting CSS and troubleshooting. I'm like, oh, that didn't work because for some reason, I don't know, like this really frustrated me, but it was obviously set up by an IT company. I use GeneratePress on my WordPress, which I absolutely love. But this website was on, I think, WP Bakery and just super clunky. And for some reason, so they have all these templates of like blog posts, pages, whatever, and you can edit all the fonts in there. But for some reason, they've gone and put in custom CSS, which has overridden all of the text. So I was trying to change the text size originally in the theme settings. And then it was like not working. That's when I went to CSS and troubleshooted and vibe coded, my way through it. And it was like honestly so much fun. Like, just to learn about that and go, oh, like I now know kind of roughly how to do CSS and div fields and all of this sort of thing,
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think that's totally legit and totally,
hmm
I mean, that's exactly vibe coding. And I'm not like super advanced, but uh, I have subscribed to the cursor tool. And it has been like so fun just to, for me, it's a big learning experience. I give it a set of instructions, and then it tells me like, well, this is what I'm going to do. Hit space or enter to accept, and then it generates the code and it puts it on like a local server on my computer, and you open a browser tab and you can see the app in action. It's like,
It's cool.
I mean, it feels like you've got like a superpower. You're like creating things, and I know developers, have been doing this for a long time, and they probably laugh, but it's just like it feels special, and
hmm
and maybe just to extend like an earlier answer, you asked me, what am I excited about? I love this. Like, I love that I can do things that I didn't used to be able to do, and um, and I'm learning like computer science in a way that um, makes me feel like I'm actually participating in a process, not just being a developer to figure it out. And like I realize that this probably isn't the super advanced computer science, or I'm not programming massive apps, but I am like I feel like I'm participating and giving feedback and um, getting great instruction.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it's a really, because I've like back when we had MySpace when I was like 15 or 13 or something. I don't know if you remember MySpace, but
I do.
it was like, yeah, like kind of like the first, well, one of the first social medias beside, I don't know if in the US you guys used MSN Messenger, but that was another
Oh,
one,
I did actually.
like a direct chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So showing my age.
No.
Um, but yeah, back in the MySpace days, and you'd get like you'd go to a website and you'd generate like your custom theme, and everybody was like all about having their own custom designed theme, and I started like learning a little bit about HTML back then, and like making things bold and underlining them and stuff like that, like real basic.
Mhm.
And but it was just really fun, and then it was like I didn't really do much with it. And that was kind of all I really did, but I did a little bit, like I've dabbled in coding, like very basic, and it's just, I mean, obviously like I have a maths brain, so it really appeals to me. And like what I really enjoyed about the process of the vibe coding and learning about CSS is exactly what you said, like you're a participant. It's not just like it's creating the image and you're copy pasting it with no idea of how it did it, but it's like you get to see the code. And so if you read through the code, it like basically is like a maths problem that they've like worked out with all the workings, so you can follow it through and be like, oh, that's how they did it. And so that was like a really cool part of it was, yeah, as you participate, you get to learn how it works. And then, you know what it's doing, and you know what padding is, and you know what, the font sizes and all of that. It's just really interesting. I'm the same. I'm like, it's really exciting just learning new skills. And it's like, it's exercising parts of my brain that I like have never really had exercised before, because
Mhm.
it's almost like a totally different way of approaching business or approaching life or problem solving, where we didn't used to be able to just like speak into our phone or type into this application and have this like kind of back and forth conversation. So I can feel it like working parts of my brain that I was like, oh, I didn't know I had a muscle there. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and but it's like satisfying in a way that like, stretching a muscle that has been stiff for a long time or sore for a long time.
Yes.
It's like I've been missing this. Like I need this, and um, and so, th- and like the other uses of AI, this vibe coding just has gotten better and better. And I know Grok is bragging about how great they are. I haven't tried it, but um, there's just so many resources thrown at this, and I just think it's great.
Yeah, it was cool. I was talking to someone about um like, yeah, vibe coding, or even building like almost kind of like a custom GPT, but where it's kind of white labeled. So you kind of own the process and the data and everything. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she just built it on Lovable, and, has just these really interesting use cases for it. And yeah, it's kind of like there's so many amazing tools out there that you can just kind of, whip up or go to ChatGPT and be like, oh, if I wanted to do this, like, how would I do it and what tool would be best? And it really is just like experimenting and having fun.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, that just makes me just really inspired. I I don't want anybody to steal my idea, but I have been working an app that's kind of a game that you can play while you're watching American football. Um, but it depends on the live action on the screen, and so I'm kind of extending it to the
That's
games
cool.
and recreation space, and it's just been really satisfying. Uh,
Mm,
yeah, but
that's cool.
yeah, I mean, on the other hand, so I do have two teen daughters that are both in high school, and there is a lot of talk about AI being potentially damaging or limiting to critical thinking skills, um, and the school's really having a hard time, I think, at that level, and maybe even more so at the university level, um, being able to restrict it or keep people from submitting term papers. Um, so I guess it's a double-edged sword.
Mm, yeah, it's become always going to become even more disruptive, I think, which obviously there's a lot of good in that, but there's also challenges. And I think I mentioned this in another episode, but I was reading about that same issue where they're having issues with people plagiarizing and trying to detect it and all of this. And it's tricky because I think this was going back 6 to 9 months, so it may not be true still, but traditionally, like, the definition of plagiarism is copying another human's work. And so because AI is not a human, technically it's not like, it's a bit of a gray area when it comes to like plagiarizing. And so they were having trouble with like, yeah, enforcing that. So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive. And it's hard to know what the, like, far-reaching effects will be, especially on younger generations. I mean, even just with social media, like, we've seen a lot of the impact, positive and negative, and it's gonna be interesting to see. Like, I'm not really envious of the younger generations in some ways. Like,
No.
sometimes it's a good thing to be older in a way, like yeah.
Yeah, I do think, this is my hot take, but like in, usually a younger generation, there's big movements to rebel against something. It's usually like the establishment, whatever that is, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's like rebelling against a war, the draft, the war draft, or maybe some harm that capitalistic society, or oppression of women or minorities. There's a lot of, obviously, like, good that comes of this. But I do think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some movement from teens that are just like, no technology.
Boycotting.
Throw away your phone. We're just all analog.
Yeah.
And um, I mean, I guess I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen that yet. But it probably will hit a fever pitch that there'll be no more technology to use. We'll just be like, we'll have
That ceiling.
our visors on and
Right? Like everyone will be living in the digital world and the real world will become like the place to be.
exactly.
Kind of like with like people love records and people love these old school cameras and like it's
Right.
almost like, yeah, the pendulum swings so far in one direction, like then it has to come back at some point. Yeah, I agree. And like maybe we'll see that in like in-person retreats or events. I
Mhm.
think I think people, yeah, will end up seeking connection more and more in person because like people are becoming more and more isolated. So it's almost like connecting with other humans is like a very, intrinsic need for all of us. And so
Mhm.
I think that, yeah, it'd be interesting to see like what the shifts are. And I'm really excited. Like, I think I'm curious and I mean, I'm a true economist at heart, but
Sure.
I think that we'll come back into equilibrium. It's all like comes down to supply and demand. And if
Mhm.
there's just so much supply of technology, like, will that bring people back into, yeah, like you said, seeking kind of more old school alternative ways of living? Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And you did mention a few like mini examples, like, like vinyl records and things like that, like people embrace. Yeah. And I wonder if like, yeah, I wonder if we'll see more of that snowball into, uh, bigger things like, I'm no internet for life or, that'd be something to see.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I guess time will tell. But we've got a few more minutes. But I want to obviously jump into we sort of talked about offshore
Yeah.
hiring
Yeah.
before we jumped on the call. But yeah, maybe if you could just speak about, yeah, kind of best practices,
Sure.
maybe virtual assistants. Obviously, we sort of touched on agents, AI agents. So I think that in some ways, probably the offshore hiring might be protected to some degree. Like maybe even just like, is it better to have like an AI agent or a virtual assistant?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's a lot of questions in there. Feel free to answer
Mhm.
whatever you want,
Yeah.
but I did actually hire a virtual assistant once on Upwork, and I found the process really difficult, so I actually
Mm.
haven't hired one again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are in that sort of
Yeah,
space.
and there's so I feel like I've experimented with a lot of different channels for hiring these virtual assistants. You mentioned Upwork. I've here and there I've hired help for discrete projects with people from Upwork. All over the world. For the most part, the communication has been fine, but in some cases, I got the sense that some of the work I was asking for was kind of productized. Like I think in one case, I'd asked them to get me a contact list with these requirements, and I just got the sense that that list had been given to a lot of people. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was not. She didn't actually do the action
It
sheet.
wasn't custom.
It wasn't
It was
custom.
like a
And
templated
right,
response. Right,
right,
right.
and I get everybody needs to make money, but maybe it wasn't quite what I hoped. And I've worked with people in Central and South America and in Asia, and it the I will say that when they are on a similar time zone, that really helps. Though a lot of the people I worked with in Asia do seem to have some stronger technical skills. And I'm making like huge generalizations here. And it's not going to apply to everyone, but I have. So I guess I'm just extending these observations, and I've hired through more like job sites that are focused on offshoring. One of the sites I liked is called onlinejobs.ph, which really focuses on the Philippines. And they encourage candidates to list their qualifications, and then you select, you interview, and that's a good arrangement. And then I've also worked with agencies that do a little bit more proactive work, like recruiting and filtering of candidates, they'll charge more. And so, you do have to kind of balance, like, do you think the vetting will be worth it? I do, I don't, I did recently hire somebody from an agency. I did not find them to be of better quality or performance than the one that I'd interviewed and sourced. So it's, it is definitely buyer beware, and you are responsible ultimately. You need to do some filtering, and sometimes you have to interview several candidates before you find the right one. And, just acknowledge that. And, but, it is a tremendous economic benefit to, when I can sell my product to a US audience for a certain price, and if I can staff my team to deliver at, a much lower price, um, and they're interested in the work, and they're, based on their regional cost of living, it is a good arrangement. Um, you know, I think it's good for everybody in that equation. Right? Everybody benefits, and you're in charge of maintaining the quality of work. You would definitely be, especially at the beginning when you hire a virtual assistant, be very overly communicative. Say, like, give more feedback than you would, um, an employee that you're seeing face to face, because, and be just very clear and direct. Be friendly and polite, but lean on the side of being more direct and clear at the beginning to get the performance you want. And if you're not, it's okay to part ways. These, just, you may, this is this unfortunately, it ends up being a little bit more transactional than maybe an in-person employee, but you do need to keep them accountable. They have to deliver on the limited instructions you can deliver over text or Zoom, and, just really solidify, like, a standard operating procedures, and expect them to deliver, because you won't be there to supervise or, um, monitor in the same capacity.
Yeah, I think this is where like SOPs become like your best friend, because it's
Yes.
like, here's the step-by-step process of like, well, probably one, here is the exact thing I'm looking for, whether that's an outcome or a specific task. And then like, what are the like every single steps that are needed to complete that task. And it's an interesting time to be in, because you have this kind of global arbitrage in terms of hiring, where yeah,
Yeah.
you can, like, I mean, that's why I live here in Peru in South America. I earn in, US dollars and Australian dollars and whatnot, and then I'm living in a lower cost, lower tax country, and so there's arbitrage there as well. And so it's, yeah, it's a really, I'm a big fan of it. It's also, I think, obviously redistributing wealth from between economies, which I think is helpful for a lot of people. I mean, there's obviously inflationary costs, and it can affect local communities. And I'm not saying it's a perfect model, but there, I think, is a lot of good in it, because it allows people in these lower economic and developing economies to have a chance to earn more, and to get ahead. And I'm curious, like, when you look at hiring someone, are you looking more for like a technical skill set or a cultural fit, or a bit of both? Like,
Yeah.
what does your kind of process look like? I'm kind of asking from a selfish
Yeah.
perspective, because I am kind of heading into that stage myself. So yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, of course it depends. And I try to hire some, little bit of specialization. They're like web development. I do need to see a little bit of, like, can you show me, some websites you've developed, or work you've actually done? And maybe can I give you a quick request and you just show me your competency, on the technical side? But for most marketing tasks, I feel like everything can be learned. And what I really vet for is willingness to learn, and, ability to learn new systems, because we're changing vendors all the time, or not. If we're not changing, we're like adding new vendors to the portfolio, and we have to learn quickly how to use them, and also be able to teach our clients how to use them. So the ability to learn, I would really prioritize, and I think that satisfies both the quality of work and the cultural fit. Because if we're all kind of on the same page, like we don't get frightened by a new tool, we try it and we learn it, and that's our culture. Then that helps make them a fit. I and I found that I don't know. I think there are definitely individuals with the right mindset that can learn anything. And to go back to AI, I think AI accelerates that quite a bit. And a lot of these tools have AI built in them that help instruct you how to use it. And great support. So I'm less concerned about skills, more concerned with the culture, I'd say. So I guess to answer your question, it's culture over skills.
No, I think that makes sense. And I think, yeah, like the willingness to learn is a big one. And like you said, yeah, like you can just learn through AI and vibe code your way out of a situation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, one interesting firm I've come across, they specifically marketed themselves as, hey, have you tried something vibe coding? We'll finish it. We'll make it real for production. Because there must be some big movement of people like getting stuck with vibe coding. And I've experienced that because I hit the limits of what I can do or get in these loops and
That's a cool business. Yeah.
that's a smart business model. It's like,
Yeah, like because sometimes it's easy to start, but hard to finish a project. So I think that's a great business idea. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, great to have you on the show. Where can people find out more about you and connect with you online?
Absolutely. So I have a podcast as well, Inside Marketing with Market Surge, and Ellie was a guest recently. I also have my business website, which is marketsurge.io, and my email is reed at marketsurge.io.
Amazing. Well, yeah, thanks. This has been a really fun conversation. Thanks for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening.